Welcome to the Education Marketing Leader podcast with Chris Raposo. If you're looking to dive into the latest industry insights, draw inspiration from education success stories, or just want to sharpen your marketing skills, you're in the right place. Here, we bring you a diverse range of voices from experts and leaders in the field, offering you a unique blend of professional development and practical strategies. Whether you want to understand your audience better, stay updated with the latest tech trends in marketing, or expand your professional network, we've got you covered. So while you're driving on your morning commute or winding down after a busy day, let's explore the dynamic world of education marketing together.
Hello and welcome back everyone to another episode of the Education Marketing Leader with Chris Raposo. Today I have the pleasure of welcoming Jason Houlihan, for the Executive Director of Marketing from Del Mar College. Jason, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me.
Awesome. Hey, I met Jason at NCMPR Conference in Seattle a couple of weeks ago, and I joined his presentation. I really wanted to have him on the show because I enjoyed it so much. So we're going to talk a little bit about what he presented on. But before we do that, we'll do a little bit of an intro like we always do. So Jason has a bachelor's degree in marriage and family counseling, and then he went on to get his MBA from Texas A&M in Corpus Christi, and before all that, he got his AA from Del Mar College, where he works right now as the Executive Director of Marketing. So, Jason, tell us a little bit about your story and how you got from where you were to where you are today.
That's probably the most complicated thing we'll talk about today. I went to Del Mar, never had the intention of staying in Corpus Christi, coming back to Corpus Christi, or anything like that. I think a lot of people can say that about their hometowns. You know, a lot of pop punk bands also say that about their hometowns. So I left and I worked at a church in Houston for a long time, you know, family and marriage counseling type stuff, and doing some drug and alcohol rehabilitation stuff as well. And I really got into the media stuff though. I had worked at a news station for the most part of my life, like supplementing my income. So that's where the media kind of came in, like editing predominantly, but also being a photojournalist. So I go out and shoot stories, do live shots, a lot of sports, because high school sports is king in Texas. Mm-hmm. So a lot of Texas football Friday nights. And eventually I wanted to come back to Corpus Christi. So I started looking for a job, and I had a couple of interviews with different places, but ultimately it worked out at Del Mar College. I knew nothing about community colleges other than the fact that I had gone to one for a while, and kind of fell in love with it. I never thought I'd be as passionate about something as what I did in the church world, as far as counseling and I think helping people, you know, in recovery. But that was really, I don't know, finding out what Del Mar College did, finding out what community colleges do, who they serve and what they do for our community. That really kind of ignited my passion again. And so it became more than a job for me. And so I think that's kind of what has gotten me slowly to this point of being executive director. I started as a social media specialist and staff writer, so writing PR press releases and doing our social media. And slowly I've kind of taken on roles that have allowed me to kind of do a little bit more and take a little more control of our overall brand and what we're able to do marketing wise.
Okay, that's a really inspiring story. I love that you went back to where it all began, but I also like, because I was wondering about the counseling degree, and when you said you worked at a church in Houston, first thing I thought about Lakewood Church, Joel Osteen, right? It wasn't it, or was it?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't there. It was a fairly large church too. Houston's the home of multiple mega churches. If you're from the area, so I was in Bel Air, which is kind of like Central 610. Loop, really close to Houston Community College. In fact, I passed Houston Community College every day on my way to work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's HCC. That's like my community college that I went to, Hillsborough Community College. Every time I type in HCC, it shows up as Houston Community College. So they have a better SEO strategy over there.
Oh yeah.
But NCMPR, let's talk about that. Your presentation was on crafting truly memorable marketing messages, and you said you have a passion for Del Mar College and the community college at large, and I could tell that it came out in your presentation. Really, really inspired by your presentation. There were a lot of laughs, some convicting messages as well. So You really delivered that well. You really presented your college well, and it got you another spot at my podcast. And I'm sure after this, my network's going to pick you up as well. So good things to come, my friend.
Yeah,
But
thank you very much.
yeah, could you share the philosophy on what makes marketing messages truly memorable in the context of community colleges in the sea of sameness sometimes out there?
Yeah, I think what I kind of shared is I, read the book Unreasonable Hospitality recently, and one of the big core messages there is a lot of us are doing very reasonable things. You think about the restaurant industry, most people are doing a pretty good job. I feel the same about colleges for the most part. I mean, we're all doing best practices, the things you're supposed to do. We go get the commercials where we show all of our academic learning spaces and how we have online education, but a lot of times that doesn't really get at why people make a decision to come to college, why people choose, especially at community colleges, to come back or to choose a vocational or trade route. While those things are becoming increasingly popular, I think it's our job to really cut through the noise and get their attention. And so the presentation was mainly about memes and some things we've done in that realm. um, we've done all kinds of things around memes. Like recently, we did they call our college UCLA in the community because we're the University of Corpus left on heirs. And so we made a logo, like a fake logo, posted it on April Fool's Day. But the message was really that enrollment's open. They were changing our brand for enrollment being open. That got way more clicks than if we just said, hey, enrollment's open, like you should come by. Great message if you do that too. Same message, just a different package for putting that out there. And so ultimately my philosophy is when we talk as a team and we'll meet and talk about what we're going to kind of do social media wise, what we're going to do marketing wise, we want to try to find clever, unique, different, eye-catching ways to tell people our story, why coming to Del Mar College would be meaningful for them and their family, and how we can help them, get to their dream, get to whatever they want, whether that's making more money, being an artist, being a musician, whatever it is. We want to make sure we're sharing a message of hope and that they can get there with us.
Yeah, one thing that stood out to me that is the social listening aspect, or even the listening to community that you guys do at Del Mar College, because you riffed on some things that are popular or that are well known within the area. You had some meme about the Family Guy gossiping on the phone, right? It was super funny, but that may not always, you can talk about that a little bit, but sometimes that messaging style only does speak to a certain demographic or geographical location, right? Because if you do that in New York City, that might not hit the note.
Right. I mean, we're in South Texas, so we have a blend of Hispanic culture and Caucasian culture, and it's really Tex-Mex here. So a lot of people speak Spanish, or at least they pretend to speak Spanish if they're at a taqueria. And we'll kind of craft messages that use a little bit of Spanish. So that Family Guy meme, for example, it was talking about chisme, which is gossip, and just kind of saying that if you're a court reporter, you get to hear a lot of chisme, you get to hear a lot of gossip. And that got a lot of play in the community because it just shows that we understand. It shows that we kind of know what's kind of out there and popular, but also shared like stuff that you definitely shouldn't do. Like for a while, there was a Yolanda Salazar meme going around, who's the person who killed Selena, who is from Corpus Christi. We have a monument here, and we have a lot of things built around Selena. So doing that here, really probably anywhere that would be a bad call, but definitely here, that's a bad call. And I think for the most part, when you have these meetings or conversations, you want to talk through like what works for our area, what resonates with our audience, and kind of let them inside on the jokes. It's okay to make a little fun about our institutions. That doesn't reduce academic rigor. It doesn't reduce the what we really offer. All it does is make us a little more relatable.
Absolutely relatable, and that little bit of self-deprecation often builds trust with your community as well. Because sometimes people that are not that are first-generation students thinking about going to college or university, they think that academic institutions are these shiny ivory tower places where only the privileged can go to. So if you bring it down to their level, right, and saying, "Hey, this is who we are," the people that work here, the people that's going to teach you, they're like you, they're from your community, they're going to understand your needs and your desires. So you're welcome here. You belong. So it opens a door for them for sure.
Exactly. That's exactly the point. I think that's why it's so critical to really be authentic, unique, and really try to tap into your area's culture. Because every one of our cities is very, very different. Like you said, this wouldn't probably play in, Seattle. It probably wouldn't play anywhere like Boise, Idaho, but it plays in Corpus Christi. So you got to kind of know and listen to what plays in your own area.
Absolutely. Bring that emotional intelligence into your marketing messages. So we talked a little bit about digital. Let's talk about some traditional marketing techniques. Do you still believe they have significance in marketing these days? I don't know, billboards or direct mail marketing. Is there something you still use?
We still use all that in our marketing mix. When we're partnering with our agency and kind of talking through the year and how we're gonna, get a Excel spreadsheet like thing, and we just kind of figure out what our media buys and things will be throughout the year. It's part of it, but ultimately, to me, it's based off budget. Those things are like icing on a cake in my eyes. They're great to have, but icing kind of sucks without cake. It kind of isn't as great without the cupcake part of it. I know there's people that like fill themselves with icing, but
Like my
forget those
kids.
people. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I have a few people I know that do the same. So, but point being that I think they still have a role, but they're kind of a sprinkle on top of what your core digital advertising is today. Because to me, if it doesn't connect to our customer relationship management system, if it doesn't connect to a little more of a robust tool, it doesn't have as much value to us in a conversion process.
It's hard. It's also harder to measure, right? When you put out these pieces there, and you put out, like you said, you put a lot of money into that because you got to get it printed, you got to get it distributed. So if you don't see the full ROI in your limited budget, it's probably the first thing that goes to the wayside.
Yeah, and we're talking about community colleges where I think from what I've read, it maybe it hovers around 2% of the entire college budget, and that's best case. I think a lot of colleges are probably 0.5%, 1%, or potentially lower than that. So you're not dealing with a massive ad buy that you might be if you were a private university or places that I think have quite a bit more of their budget invested. So we have to be incredibly strategic and intentional about what we're spending and how it's making a meaningful impact on, getting in front of people that need to see it for enrollment purposes, but also because we believe it makes an impact in their life. So we want them to see it so they can see what we have to offer them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the word community implied that you are out in the community and serve your community. So talking about that, where do you go to market your institutions besides high school? Are there any specific watering holes that you attend to market to these prospective students?
Yeah, quite a few. Del Mar College is unique in the sense that our continuing education is incredibly massive. And we've started to really work on stackable credentials, which essentially means we're already there. We're just building more onto it. But essentially, yeah, you go into welding and you're going to get a occupational skills award. Well, you can go and then get a level 1 certificate, level 2 seamlessly. Like those continuing education classes you took still count towards a meaningful credential at every step of the way. And so that's been really meaningful for us. So continuing education is kind of something that we market to a lot of returning students. And typically, I would say the avenues and channels that we use for that are predominantly social media. What really works for us is using a student and having them hold a camera and film themselves and tell their story. Yeah, we got to craft that. We got to practice that a little bit because it's got to be somewhat polished for TikTok or for Instagram or wherever it's ending up. But we also use a lot of search too, paid search. We've moved to a strategy where we do that year round. We used to just do it during enrollment periods, but honestly, people can get into school anytime now. We're moving more and more into the 8 weeks type thing. I know some colleges are way ahead of us on that, but we're getting there. But on the continuing education game, that makes a big impact in getting people into a class any time of the year instead of just focusing on fall and spring enrollment like we traditionally had done.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense because you have to strike the iron while it's hot. And when a non-traditional student, somebody who wants to upskill, I guess, gets fed up at their job and they're like, geez, man, I'm in a career ceiling. I need to get going. And then they're looking at your college to further educate themselves throughout the semester, like let's say in October, and there's nothing there to offer, right? Then there may cool down by the time January rolls around. So it's always good to have that opening. That's really good on your part there.
Yeah, and you got to think about, I mean, I think we all face this, and we face this in Texas just as much as anybody else, but there's colleges that offer that. So if Del Mar College can't meet their needs, and we know we can meet their needs, then they may look at, you know, a WSU, which is Western Governors University, and not a bad place. I'm not, you know, but it is competitive in a way that it wasn't probably 10 years ago. So those are considerations when, you know, you're marketing and trying to capture them when they're interested, because we're their local community college. We're connected to the local workforce, and we want to help connect them to that, because that's ultimately a core part of our mission. And it's a core part to Corpus Christi and the Coastal Bend's growth. So that's why it kind of has cascading effects when we can't connect them with a meaningful credential and then meaningful employment.
So you've been at Del Mar since 2017, I saw in the marketing department. Is there a particular marketing campaign that resonates with you, that sticks out, that you still remember? And what elements contributed to that success of that campaign?
Well, I had no part in it. I will say I had no part in this. So no credit to me, but to my predecessors and my bosses at the time. But I think the Dreams Delivered campaigns really resonated in the community. A lot of colleges talk about path and chart your success and stay here, all great messages. But for some reason, that Dreams Delivered thing, just dreams period delivered period, really resonated with me. And they stuck with that for a really long time. And I think in the community, people kind of still know us that way. In fact, I still see people make posts that are like Dreams Delivered.
Nice.
One funny anecdote to that is somebody that had a bad experience, which we fixed, but they put Dreams Destroyed. So
Whoa.
that tells you how much that tag really resonated in the community. And we've done a lot of campaigns, but that one just has really lived in the cultural zeitgeist of this area. Probably it's going to live here for a while, in perpetuity, potentially.
Okay, so Dreams Delivered, is that a social proof campaign that talks about people that graduated from the school?
Yeah, a lot of it was just about us delivering whatever their dream was. So whether that was to get a meaningful job, upgrade, upskill, or to potentially get a house, or to get their kids into a private school, whatever their dream was, like Del Mar College played a role in getting them to that place.
You mentioned the book Reasonable Hospitality earlier. If I remember correctly, I think you had a play on that. Was it Unreasonable Hospitality you talked about?
Yes.
So
Right.
that was about that story about your grandfather and the chicken fried steak, and how the sushi restaurant gave you a sushi piece with a chicken fried steak on it, right? So that was amazing. Amazing story to open the the presentation. And that just showed me your ability to storytell, because you brought the audience in and then you had them hooked the entire time. So let's talk about storytelling a little bit. How do you leverage the power of story and marketing efforts to create a deeper connection with prospective and current students? And if you'd like, you can touch on that chicken fried steak story as well.
Yeah, I'll briefly touch on that and then share the piece about, I think, making marketing messages that stick. That story was that my brother and I were in town, and my brother doesn't live here. He's living in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So he's visiting. We went to Port Aransas to Blue Water Cowboy like we always do. And we were talking about my grandfather and how we knew that he ordered chicken fried steak. I mean, the guy would be at a, seafood restaurant where, the ahi tuna was really good or the redfish was really good. And he'd be like, nah, I'd rather have a chicken fried steak. Cool. Like, so it was easy to order for the guy. But we were sharing about him, and they overheard. We didn't order anything like this. And they made a whole sushi roll with chicken fried steak on it. And, those kind of things stick out in your mind. It's memorable because it's different. It's memorable because they listened. It's memorable because it was unexpected. And that was an impactful meal. And I always tell people to go to Blue Water Cowboy if they're in Port Aransas. I want people to have those same experiences at our colleges, at Del Mar College in particular, because that's where I work, but really at all community colleges, because we have such a powerful mission. And to me, the way to kind of do that is, again, it goes back to listening. And I'm not saying anything new. I'm not telling you anything that other people haven't written about, but ultimately, it's about listening to your audience and really telling the story from their perspective. Make them the hero, because they are heroes. I mean, to put aside everything and trust an institution like Del Mar College with your kind of your life and your livelihood, your economic viability for your life is a big trust thing. And so when you build a marketing campaign, really finding ways that tell them that you can get them to where they want to be. And we're building a new campaign right now. Can't unveil all of it yet, but it'll be coming out soon. And I hope that it really resonates in that way too, because we took time to say, okay, people really, when they come to our college, they want to make an upgrade in their economic future. Maybe they want to own a home. Maybe they want to work at some company like Gulf Coast Growth Ventures here, or voestalpine, or wherever it is that they want to work. We can get them there. And that's kind of the story, but making them the hero. We're part of that story, but they're the real hero. And in every message that we do, whether it's a joke or not, the hero is the student. It's never the institution.
Absolutely. Truly are the hero. And that carries on when you put that spotlight on that student, that shows them what they did, because sometimes you're so much into the grind that you don't realize what you actually accomplished. And then once you give them that recognition, for one, that makes them feel good, two, they share with their friends and family, and that may bring in some more people, because it truly shows that you care about not only your institutional survival, but also the betterment of the community and the students there, right? So you mentioned earlier that about 2% of the budget of the college goes to marketing usually for community colleges. So talking about budget constraints, especially relevant with the demographic enrollment cliff looming, and there may be more financial issues, especially for smaller schools in the Midwest and the Northeast. What cost-effective marketing strategies have you found to be particularly impactful?
I think it just goes back to digital. I think digital is the most cost-effective, easy to translate into conversions way to market now. I mean, whether that's YouTube pre-roll stuff, or getting to them on Hulu. And I know that Amazon and stuff, they're all adding ads now too. That's where people are. Social media as well. I think most of us hopefully are already doing that. I hope. But also just kind of refining your paid search stuff. And you get a lot of data of what people are searching, what they want. You can tell a lot about people just from that. So we spend quite a bit of time with our agency and also independently, looking at those type of things to make decisions. Mm-hmm. And I can't speak to everybody's financial challenges or like what would really fix it. But I do think that the difference probably going into the future is people aren't going to school one time for the most part anymore. They're going to school a few times in their life. I mean, and I'm not saying that they're going for another bachelor's degree necessarily, but their life with us is more like a wave. They'll kind of come, they'll need some reskilling or upskilling, and they'll come kind of over and over again. So yeah, you're right. We're facing a demographic cliff in the United States. Thankfully in Texas, it's not quite that bad. We have a ton of young people. Our area in particular has quite a few young people in that 18 to 35 demographic. and we're not going to be facing that for a while. But if you are facing that, I think it's really focusing on the upskilling and reskilling stuff. Like, what do people need to future-proof themselves against AI, against, things that are kind of changing in our world? And people are going to be looking to community colleges because we're the most nimble, ready places to help them do that versus going back to a university.
That's right. And it's cost effective. And most of the community colleges I heard of have open access. So you don't really have to have all this other stuff going on, superstar student. The other good thing about Corpus Christi, like you said, you have a heavy Hispanic population there, and there's supposedly a rise in that demographic in traditional age students. So that works out in your favor as well. And one more thing that I thought about when you said reskilling and upskilling is that people don't stay at a career for 20, 30 years anymore, right? Every couple of years, they make a career switch. I made a career switch from legal to marketing a couple of years ago. And in order to do so, I went to school. So that's the other thing. People are always evolving, trying to better themselves.
I did the same thing. I had a family, counseling degree, and I think I was really good at that. But when I came to Corpus Christi, that just wasn't really something I thought I was going to be able to get a job doing. But I landed something at Del Mar, and then I got my MBA because I knew, okay, I needed to get more skills in this area, so I'm prepared to handle the challenges that Del Mar College has and be more effective. So I get it. I mean, I've done it myself.
Yeah. So to build authenticity on your platform, social media marketing platforms, do you involve faculty and staff as well in your messaging to build that trust before people even come on campus?
I would say that we have done a lot better the last few years and like trying to build those more of a collaborative environment that we're partners in creating content versus we're just kind of coming down with this idea. And honestly, a lot of times they make it better. Faculty and staff have made the ideas better. I can think about the mustache rating video we did recently with public safety. It seems ridiculous, I know, but for some reason, a lot of firefighters, police officers, EMT guys have mustaches. And don't worry, we gave the females some mustaches too to put on for the fun of the video. But they were all in on that. They were like, what if we have one of them like slow roll up into the camera with a mustache? And, what if we do this? And we kind of do a Tom Selleck type pose. And they were a lot more into it than I thought they'd be.
That's awesome. Let's talk about social media platforms before we land this plane, because we've been talking about social media a lot. So at the beginning of the year, I think it was beginning of the year or late last year, Meta came out with the Threads. So how do you stay ahead of upcoming newer platforms? Do you jump on them right away, or do you focus on the things that actually work for you and then just hone in on that?
I would say a both and strategy. You want to make sure you're locking your usernames and your branding stuff into those platforms as soon as you can. And just then that way you can have time to make a decision. Because while we can't use TikTok in Texas, and potentially we're facing a federal ban, right? Whenever TikTok came online, we kind of got in pretty quick, especially with trying to lock in the Del Mar College, Del Mar Vikings, things like that, because we didn't want somebody to, hijack our brand or, be portraying us. So I think that's critical. So as soon as something like Threads comes online or Be Real or whatever it is, not saying that's a good place for you, but definitely lock your brand in. And then you can have a conversation. Is this something we can handle? For us, that's often the conversation. I mean, we have one person that's job is to focus on social media. I know a lot of colleges don't have anybody. Some colleges have multiple people. So it kind of depends on your team. I have a friend who works for the Astros, and they have somebody that does everything. Like they have somebody for, for X, and they have somebody for LinkedIn. And so it depends on where you're at. But ultimately for us, we really put a lot more into Facebook and Instagram because that's what pays off, and LinkedIn too. I think LinkedIn, a totally different audience for us, but we kind of do a lot of the more, I think, traditional comms stuff on LinkedIn, and then Facebook and Instagram, Facebook and then Instagram's a little more edgy because that's where a lot of the younger people in our area are. And if we were on TikTok, that would probably also be super edgy. So my advice would be to first have the conversation, can we handle doing this? Because if you can't do it well, it really just looks bad. to focus on it. And I know a lot of colleges are offloading X, for example. We've still kind of been doing stuff on X, just not as frequently as we were with Twitter. But ultimately, it just goes back to, do we have the bandwidth to actually execute on this versus should we just be here? Because if you don't have a strategy around it, you're not going to really be able to grow an audience organically, especially.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. So I think December 2022 is when Texas banned TikTok. So you were on TikTok, right? And then you had to stop it. Did you make a move or potential move to YouTube Shorts? Because I heard that's really up and coming now.
Yeah, we do a lot on YouTube Shorts now, where before we didn't do any of our vertical videos on YouTube. So it has been honestly better than Instagram Reels in a lot of ways. I was a bit skeptical at the beginning, but they've really been focusing on it. And you kind of have to look at what platforms are feeding people.
That's right.
It changes, it changes. For some reason, for us on Facebook, videos just don't really play a lot. And that's been a slow move that way. Because when I started in 2017, we did a ton of videos on Facebook, and that's how we got the most engagement. Doesn't really work that way now. Most of the video engagement we get on Facebook is also through Reels. So we do a Instagram Reel and we push it onto Facebook because that's what Facebook's doing now.
Absolutely. And in the end, it's where your audience is. This is where you want to be. Last question. What emerging trends of technologies do you believe will play a pivotal role in marketing strategies for community colleges?
I guess the obvious one is AI. I think some colleges are ahead of the game and like looking at tools. I've had quite a few conversations with salespeople about different tools that they have for enrollment management, for onboarding students, whether that's texting AI, voice AI, but also a lot of CRMs are leveraging that data. So I think if you can master CRMs and AI, that's going to be really critical to the future, because it allows human beings, especially in our institutions, to do what human beings need to do, which is be the frontline, compassionate support students need, and less focused on the minutia of day to day.
Absolutely. It's a good, a friend of mine calls it a cobot, like a co-worker, but a robot cobot. So utilize it, leverage it. And if you're able to, invest in it as well. Jason, super episode. How can people get in touch with you if they want to connect with you and learn more about you?
I think LinkedIn is probably the best way. There's not a lot of Jason Houlihans in Corpus Christi. So that's probably the best way to get in touch with me. And I'm fairly active on there, and I'll post a ton, but I'll respond to your messages.
Very good. I'll be sure to tag you in the recap, and so people can get in touch with you after this. Thanks, Jason.
Right.
Really appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Hey, thanks so much for tuning into the show today. If you enjoyed it, don't keep it to yourself. Share with your friends in your network. And if you have a moment, I would really appreciate a review of the podcast. That'll help other people find the show as well. Tune in every Thursday morning at 8 a.m. when I release another episode. Take care now. Have a good one, friends.